Hi there. Well, it's been a while since I've last posted, and that's largely because I've had a pretty rough time of it in terms of responses to chemotherapy, especially the latter cycle. As you can see, I've got one of these things. Depending on where you are in the country, they call them styes or pikes or whatever, where it's like a almost like a mouth ulcer on your eyelid. And I only ever get those when I'm severely run down. And I am severely run down to the extent that I've had to sign off work as sick under, medical recommendation. So essentially now I'm in the latter stages of the chemotherapy cycle, which is ultimately geared towards stem cell treatment. Um, in terms of how I feel as a person, I'm extraordinarily weary all the time, to the extent it's almost like the best way I can describe it is it's like you've been sleep deprived and you're still expected to function. I've literally been stood up and been capable of falling asleep stood up. That's how tired I've been. And the problem is, your energy levels don't regulate themselves in any predictable way. So you might get up feeling, oh, everything's okay again. And then, literally, within the space of about 15, 20 minutes, you can feel like you've just come off a London to Brighton marathon. It's that severe. Um, what you notice about this sort of situation is how much this chemotherapy is an invasion of your body, because essentially, although it sounds trite to say, you're being poisoned, and the hope is that the poison kills the cancer. But essentially, it's your whole body is being punished in the process, and your immune system is very low. But more importantly, your energy levels are just, because your body's using all of its energy to fight the poisoning. It feels like there's nothing left for any other function. It's almost like keeping you alive is taking all your energy. All of that said, I don't actually feel necessarily depressed. In all honesty, I'm fed up with feeling like this, and I'm fed up with feeling like everything you do and every decision you make you have to leave yourself the option of not being able to follow through and not being able to complete the action. So if you decide I'm going to go for a walk today, you've got to allow for the fact that you won't be up to it. Or if somebody tries to say, "Oh, let's go out for, go out and get some fresh air," you really want to, but then moments before you're about to set off, your body just goes, "No, you're staying here. You're not going anywhere, son." So it is it's kind of you feel the sort of frustration, if you will, of that sort of level of what's the word I'm looking for? Restraint, as if your body's that restraint on you. It's like being in a kind of psychological lockdown situation where everything you want to do is sort of subject to some sort of invisible firewall. That said, again, I don't feel depressed or suicidal or anything. I don't feel those sorts of things. I've met some lovely people on this journey. I've shared stories with people who have had much worse experiences of cancer. People are having similar experiences, and I genuinely feel humbled by those experiences, because you realize that there's lots of people on this journey, and whilst you can't compare like with like, you do realize that everyone's got their own little if you want to use this term, they're all carrying their own cross. So it's kind of, as I say, it's a humbling experience, but it's also inspiring when you see people who, keep fighting. People that are older, people that are sicker, people that have had less advantages, or even sometimes more advantages. But it's a very humbling spiritual experience. It's not one I'd necessarily recommend. If you don't have to have this experience, then that's probably a good thing. But I do think it makes a difference. I do think it forces you as well to reevaluate what is important in your life and what is just clutter. You sort of realize when you're faced with something like this, and you're faced with the question of your mortality and your future, you do start to think, well, which of these projects that I've got on the go, which of these hobbies and interests, which of these pursuits I've got are actually adding value to my life, and which have I just accumulated and just not bothered to get round to getting rid of. When you see these programs, like hoarders and stuff, and those are quite obvious scenarios of people with stacks of newspaper and poop in bags and things. But I think there's a clutter that goes unrecognized, which is just as damaging, which is kind of mental clutter, where you've accumulated stuff in your life that really isn't adding any value to your life. It isn't really making your life any better. And I think that it's an opportunity, something like this, to sort of shed that and say, look, I've got to cleanse myself of these wasted activities. The saddest experience, though, of undergoing cancer treatment is realizing who's there for you and who isn't. And those that are there for you, you can't ever repay them enough for what they've done. Your gratitude towards them is so deep-seated that you just think, I'll do anything for this person if they need help in the future. But what's sad is when people that you've donated a chunk of your life to, or people that you have gone out of your way to help and support, are just not there. And you find yourself walking into a cancer treatment room to the sound of your own footfall. And you're surrounded by people who have family there and, cheerleaders, and you're walking into this sort of scenario on your own. And those who you were there for when they needed you, because of some hissy fit that they've decided to have, or because of some pure selfishness on their part and ingratitude, have just abandoned you. And to me, that is, insofar as that is an act of extreme cruelty, it's not forgivable as far as I'm concerned. Because I think sometimes people can hurt you inadvertently, maybe even carelessly. But you can do something about that, because you can say, well, look, I want you to realise this is hurting me. I want to show you why this is bad. And in that situation, you can sort of say, well, all right then, I sort of get it. I didn't realise, I'm sorry. I thought this would, I didn't realise it was going to have this effect on you, or I didn't realise I'd hurt you in that way. You can do something with that. But when somebody doesn't care one way or the other, whether you're hurt or not, you really can't forgive that. And I know that there's religious types out there that will say, oh, you should try and forgive, but I really don't think you can. Because cruelty you can't forgive. Because cruelty is knowing what you're doing is causing harm and doing it anyway. Twisting the knife when there's no need to have twisted the knife. You're injured enough as it is, you're hurt enough as it is. So, there we are. I'm going to try and stay more in touch. And as I say, I've been pretty bad. I've been extremely tired and sort of But I've stayed in touch as best I can with people that have been there for me, and you know, a lot of lovely people have given me some very helpful advice and support. You know who you are, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And the one thing I do want to say is that you. The one thing I do want to say, I'm trying to figure out how best to put it, is that there are. I really can't get my words out. This is that chemo brain thing, which is a thing, by the way. I feel like saying that you have to appreciate and understand that it matters how you I really can't get my words out. It matters how you see and are perceived in this cancer journey. And I think that there are a lot of people who sort of write you off as a person because you've got cancer. They treat you as if that's your card marked and you're dead and you've no more future. And you really have to find, I think, a way of asserting yourself in your own life. And I feel that that's something that I think if there was... You see, what I'm trying to get at is, I'm trying to find a diplomatic way of saying it. There are those people who have cancer who, as a result of the experience, become better people, or they become more focused, or they become more appreciative of life. And those are worthy aspirations and worthy sort of outcomes to this journey. But one thing I've encountered is this, and I'm really not happy about it, is that this group of people that try to turn cancer into a career opportunity for themselves. I've encountered recently a lot of people who are trying to become YouTube influencers on the back of their cancer experience. I mean, a good example is there's a local, my particular form of cancer is called multiple myeloma, which is depending on who you speak to, is either a blood or a bone cancer. It's basically a bone marrow cancer, and insofar as bone marrow makes blood, that's why some people regard it as a blood cancer, and some people regard it as a bone cancer because as it starts to attack your bone marrow, it affects your bones. I prefer to see it as a blood cancer because I'm often seen by a hematologist, etc., etc. The purpose of saying all that is, I realise that what I've got is a blood cancer. So I joined a local multiple myeloma group, and they sort of they hold these meetings. And what I was annoyed at was there was a guy there talking about bowel cancer. And he seemingly turns up, and he's trying to get himself on the news, and he's trying to get himself on all over YouTube. And I think, well, first of all, what's that got to do with what I'm doing, with my situation? I mean, if I was a bowel cancer sufferer, then fine, fair enough. But what's that got to do with me? And what I realised was, and I appreciate that can seem a little unkind, because you could take the view, well, it's all experience, it's all, but it just, the whole vibe of it felt like the group we were his groupies, and like he's angling for some sort of MBE or something. I'm thinking, people are here because they're in distress. People are here because they need help. They're not here as part of your aggrandizement. They're not here to put you on some sort of conveyor belt to a knighthood. And it's sort of, as I say, for me, the reason I'm doing these things at all is because I'm thinking, well, somebody might derive something from it. And if they do, great. And if they don't, it's just a way of keeping me sane and a way of kind of centering me in this process. But I'm not, it's never occurred to me that I'm going to end up on, I'm a celebrity as a result of it. But these people, they're like on a sort of cancer safari. And they sicken me because they're just trying to use people's vulnerability and misery to promote themselves. So, all I'm saying is, if you're out there, by all means join groups, by all means get information, but don't give any oxygen to these people. You're not there as a spectacle for them to kind of, oh, look at me shaking hands with a cancer patient. Don't let yourself be objectified in that way. You're here, you've a right to survival, you've a right to survive, to be with your loved ones, to get as much out of your life as you can. But you're not there to give these people a living, these vultures. I know it's a dark theme to end on, but I just thought, I'm just passing that on. Anyway, thank you to everyone who's been there for me, who's been supportive. And I am very grateful in ways that I can't. Grateful is too small a word for how I feel. And I genuinely love all of you. Thank you very much.